Hi friend, welcome to the Quiet Connections podcast. Do you feel anxious and not good enough in social situations? Feel like you're weird, broken or don't fit in? You are not alone. Join Hayley and Stacey on a journey to quiet confidence, picking up key insights to help you feel more calm and confident, so you can finally speak up, join in and feel like you belong too.
Hi, and welcome to the first episode of the Quiet Connections podcast. I'm Stacey.
And I'm Hayley. This podcast is for you if you feel anxious or panicky in social situations. Or maybe you consider yourself to be shy, too quiet, or socially anxious. Or perhaps you feel like you're not good enough. Right now, you might be struggling with everyday tasks that other people seem to find easy. Or avoiding social situations for fear of rejection and criticism. These challenges are actually really common, but because they're things that people don't tend to talk about, you can see how easily we can feel alone, broken, and like we just don't fit in. Stacey and I have been there too, held back by fear and anxiety, keeping ourselves small and quiet, afraid to be seen and heard. That's why we feel it's so important to start these conversations, and the whole reason that this podcast exists for you. We're speaking the unspoken so that you know you're not alone and you know you don't need fixing. We want you to see that you can do more, achieve more, and be more successful and connected than you probably think you can right now. You just need to collect a few puzzle pieces to help you manage those anxious feelings and start showing up first.
Over the course of this series, we'll be joined by some wonderful guests as we explore key insights and stories to help you reframe quiet, embrace imperfections, and love who you truly are. We'll be diving into topics such as loneliness, self-rejection, mindfulness, managing criticism, connection, dealing with uncertainty, and letting go of the fears that hold us back, like failure and making mistakes. We'll be gaining insights from those who have been where you are now and sharing vital tools that help us move towards self-acceptance and practicing self-compassion, to understanding how our thoughts are not our reality and why how we are isn't who we are. Along the way, you'll pick up a variety of tips and tools so that you too can feel calmer, more confident, and experience more joy doing the things you really want to. In this first episode, you'll be getting to know us and hearing our stories. We'll begin to share some of the key puzzle pieces that have helped us and the people we have worked with to move beyond anxiety and avoidance. You'll be exploring with us what it takes to grow your confidence so you can finally speak up, join in, and feel like you belong.
Now, Stacey and I are both coaches and directors at our community organisation, Quiet Connections, based here in Cornwall in the UK. Together, we help quieter people like you to feel more calm and confident so you can speak up when you need to, join the social group you want to, make new friends and go on dates without the panic, get the grades that you deserve, and actually enjoy talking with people. We run workshops and speak publicly to hundreds of people at a time, but it wasn't always this way.
No,
Stacey, would you like to share your story, Stacey?
Yeah, so too shy, too sensitive, worry too much. Those are like some of the key things that come up when I think about my childhood and what it was like for me growing up. So not only did I start to kind of criticize myself for those things, but it was also the phrases I heard a lot from those around me that, oh, you're just too sensitive. Stop taking things so personally. Stop taking things to heart. Stop worrying too much. Speak up. All those types of things. So there came the sense of feeling as though like I didn't really fit in and I didn't really belong, and the way that I thought I was just wasn't acceptable and it wasn't okay. And there was just this deep feeling of I'm just not good enough, that there must be something wrong with me.
I was always the quiet child. I can remember, my parents apologising for me being shy and not talking to people. I would sit at the back of the class, quiet, not speaking, eyes down, please don't talk to me. And when I was spoken to, I would tend to just freeze up, go bright red. I was a little redhead kid with a red face.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember being in primary school and being forced into doing these poetry recital competitions because the teachers thought that it would help me with feeling more confident and with speaking up in the class. And it was just horrific. I just remember standing there terrified because, I was a 7-year-old kid having to stand up in front of all these people and recite these poems. And you were judged and evaluated on how expressive you were and how you could bring that poem to life. And I would just stand there completely lifeless. So that really just kind of reinforced some of those ideas and those beliefs that I had about myself already.
My very first memory was when I was probably about 6 years old, and we were doing a carnival in Falmouth, and we did this on a regular basis, and I was a fairy queen attendant, and my first memory is lying about needing a wee and asking my dad to get me off the float because I just couldn't take people looking at me anymore. So I know that real anxiety around people and around being center of attention was there from a very young age for me. So I grew up being this very shy child, and I felt like I constantly received messages that I wasn't good enough, that I was getting things wrong. And interestingly, I was watching my mum with my nephews recently, and they were just doing some colouring in, and she was saying, "Oh no, you can't colour in the face that colour because that's not the colour of people's faces."
Yeah, I received a lot of that as well when I was growing up.
And I thought that's really interesting. That's just a really subtle way that we can start to receive the messages that we're getting things wrong and that we're not doing things right and we're making too many mistakes, and telling us that we have to be perfect, really. So I grew up with this idea that I had to be perfect. If I wasn't 100% that I had the correct answer, then I wouldn't be giving an answer.
Yeah, same. There were so many times when I was in school and I would think that I had the answer, but I was always just so doubting of myself. So whenever there was that bit of doubt there, I just couldn't put my hand up. I was just too afraid in case it was wrong. And then there was just that fear of I would embarrass myself for getting something incorrect.
And if a teacher would pick on me in class, I would literally just freeze. I would go red in the face. I can remember one awful incident when I was in science, and the teacher asked me as a teenager about a question about the reproductive system. And I just froze and went red in the face and I couldn't speak. And this was my normal reaction. And her response was, "See, this is what happens when you're embarrassed to talk about sex."
Oh, that's terrible.
And it was just so shaming. And I still remember that now, and I can still feel how I felt and feel the burning of my face and the laughter in the room. I think my life has been a series of these moments where I have been in a situation where I've been the center of attention, and I've received these messages that, I'm messing up and I'm not good enough and I'm not living up to the standards that I should be when I compare myself to the other people around me. And so I struggled with things like presentations. And I'd go off sick usually if there was a presentation. And if I really couldn't avoid that, then I'd be standing at the front of the class, red in the face, stumbling over my words. And I could just hear the whispering in the room, like, why is she that red in the face? And
yeah. Trembling legs was always a big thing for me. They used to tremble like mad. And I used to always just hope and pray that the teachers wouldn't pick me to go next, and that hopefully maybe the time would just run out and I'd be able to get away with it. Of course, that never happened. So I just remember just panicking my way through doing presentations or even just answering the register in class. I remember one time actually when I was in primary school and the boys sat across from me, taking the mickey out of the way that I used to answer the register because I felt nervous. I used to giggle a bit, so whenever I answered register I'd always giggle at the same time. And I remember him sitting there one day and just staring at me with this scrunched up face, why do you always do that? And I just remember not saying anything back, but just looking down and feeling this sense of shame of why do I do that? And that was a common feeling for me, that sense of why do I do that? Why do I act in this way? So as I continued into my teenage years, I just started to become really disconnected from who I was, and I was really trying to hide myself. I struggled to speak to people and to make friends. And when I did make friends, it was usually because the other person would start talking to me first and would continue to make that effort. And I would just slowly ease into that friendship. It was never me, I think, who ever instigated a friendship with anyone. And the few people who I did then feel very comfortable around almost became like my security blanket. And if I was like going into school, and if I found out that like one of those friends wasn't there that day, I would just remember that feeling of panic of just like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go into the classrooms by myself. I'm going to have to sit by myself. I'm going to have no one to talk to.
I remember that too.
Yeah. Horrible, absolutely horrible feeling. Yeah, like absolute sheer panic. Like it was bad enough going to school in the first place because, you know, you had to be around so many people and, you know, you didn't know if any teachers were going to ask you questions in class or anything like that. But yeah, when you find out that like you're like one or two like people that you actually felt comfortable with went there, it was just like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to get through this day. So by the time I was like 11 or 12, I just started disconnecting further and further away from myself. And obviously what I've learned over the last few years is that actually showing up as who you are is a very vulnerable thing to do. And that sense of emotional vulnerability was not something that I learned growing up. So I didn't really have the tools to be able to, I suppose, express how I was feeling, what I was thinking, or even really express who I was. I had this belief that, you know, vulnerability was a weakness, that it wasn't okay to be vulnerable, that it wasn't okay to be sensitive, that it wasn't okay to feel all the emotions that I felt, which meant that I was really just trying to hide who I was. So I found it hard to connect with other people or to allow other people to get to know me. I just believed that everyone was going to reject who I was, that my opinions weren't valid, or I would be criticized for them, that nobody liked me. And even if someone did seem to like me, I always kind of like still thought that it was just a joke. And that eventually that joke would come out and it would be like, we were just pretending, actually, you know, nobody likes you. And even sharing my opinions didn't feel okay. I remember that I would like bands or songs, and if I heard other people talking about them, I felt like I couldn't offer up my opinion in case it was wrong, or in case like what I thought about it wasn't the same as somebody else. Or if somebody asked me like, what's your favorite band? Oh, well, no, I can't answer that, because what if who I like isn't who you like?
It's like, well, what music do you like? Tell me first and then I'll tell you.
Oh, it's definitely like that. It was just really simple little things like that, which, going back to the music thing, actually for quite a while, I pretended that I didn't even listen to music so that I could avoid kind of answering those questions, because there is that sense of vulnerability and sharing who you are when it comes to like the things that you like, or like your taste in music, or TV shows that you like watching. So there was this feeling of, I need to hide, I need to protect myself, I need to have walls up, I can't let people in. And all of that, like I said earlier, like really drove this sense of disconnection, because the person that I was showing up as in the world really didn't reflect the person that I knew I was inside. And for me, that's where a lot of the struggle came from. The, you know, conflict that I felt inside was really that push and pull of, I want to show up, I want to be seen, I want people to get to know me, I want to connect with people, and yet I don't feel like I can.
I went through life keeping myself very small, trying to stay quiet and hidden. And I really developed social anxiety that meant that I was feeling really sick whenever I had to go to school. I'd actually really make myself ill just through the worry, depending on like what was happening in school that day. For example, like you said, Stacey, having one of those friends to support you. Well, do you remember when the teachers would sit you boy, girl, and take away your entire support network?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Seating plans. Oh, hearing that. Yeah, at like the start of like a school year or something. I just remember that like drop in my stomach of like, no, like what if I'm sat next to someone that I don't know very well? Like I'm not gonna be able to ask for help, or Yeah, I used to hate that so much.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't ask for help, and I'd just be sat there feeling anxious the whole time and going like, please don't talk to me, please don't talk to me, but also feeling ridiculous because I'm not talking to anyone.
Yeah,
and
I
people
remember
comment on that.
Yes, I'm like, I would just sit there with like just my head down, and it would be like tunnel vision of just like looking at my workbook.
I can remember this one awful incident where we were sat at the lunch table in secondary school, and one of the girls just started shouting about how much she hates me, how much I annoy her because I'm so quiet and I don't say anything. And I had no response. I was just, tears in my eyes, holding it back, and I couldn't say anything. And I had one nice friend with me who was sticking up for me, saying, well, that's not nice. But the damage is kind of done, this constant build up of messages that you're getting, because like you, I wasn't really showing up. I wasn't sharing opinions. I was afraid to share what I liked, and I want other people to tell me what was okay to like first.
Same. And even if I didn't like what everybody else liked, then I felt too scared to say that I had like a different opinion on something. So again, it was just limit and minimize my own self and what I thought and what mattered to me as a way to try and fit in with everyone else.
And what I find so intriguing is that I could go through school with this intense fear and nobody picked up on it. Not one teacher pulled me to one side and was like, are you okay? Or spoke to my parents. And even my parents didn't really notice that there was an issue. I was just that I was this quiet, shy person, and that's just the way I was. And well, that wasn't true. I had some real challenging issues going on, and I needed help, and I needed support, and I needed to know that I was okay. I needed what you had, Stacey, when you had your teacher pull you to one side and say, look, we all feel anxious.
That was really a special moment. And for me, that there's been three prime situations in my life that have really helped to shift or start shifting that within me. And it first came when I was about 14. And when I first had those moments of other people actually telling me that they felt the same way that I did. I had a teacher at school who, after my mum read my diary, and then we decided that I would go have some professional help and have some counselling. And we had to tell the school about that because I would be leaving during class. And I remember my form tutor sitting me down one day and having a conversation with me and telling me that she had also felt that way and that she still feels that way at times. And I think that was the first time I had an adult really express that sense of vulnerability with me and to tell me that it was okay that I felt that way and that things can change. And I do wish that there was more of that, especially in school. I'm just going back to like what you said, Hayley, there about teachers not noticing. And I just remember that in, about 6 months before kind of this point, I was in an English class and we had a poetry project that we were having to do. And my poem was literally about suicide. I handed in this poem about how I wanted to end my life and gave it to the teacher, and she just gave me an A and nothing was said. And I was like,
wow,
like desperate cry for help. And it was just dismissed and not picked up on.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking, isn't it? So I think for me, that disconnection that I felt was one of the biggest thing. And I know that is a core driver to feeling suicidal. That sense that I didn't fit in anywhere, I didn't belong. And, I may have had a few people who were close to me at times. I certainly didn't fit into the groups. And when you're in school, largely you're hanging out in groups of people. And I would kind of never felt like I found wherever I fit in. And I'd much prefer meeting with people one-to-one, and I felt like I could be more myself and have fun. But I definitely couldn't when there was a group of people.
I think it's interesting what you say there, because for me, I almost preferred sitting in groups of people because it meant that I could just quietly hide and everyone else would just kind of have that conversation. And as long as I threw in a couple of laughs every now and again, then it was almost like a way to disguise the fact that like I'm part of the group, but actually I'm not contributing anything. And I was actually sitting there, I suppose, feeling more on the outside, but trying to, I suppose, like pretend almost that I was part of it. And if someone, like if certain people then got up and left and I was left sat like one-to-one with someone, like I would just freeze and I'd be like, crap, I have to speak to this person.
yeah, me too. I mean, like specific people one-to-one. But definitely I can relate to that feeling on the outside, and you know, that intense feeling that I don't fit in, that I'm flawed and I'm not like the other people in this group. That really was intensified when I was in a group of people for me. But there were just certain people throughout my life who one-to-one actually felt really good to spend time with. And then of course when it came to boys, that was a whole other thing on its own.
That was the worst for me.
And I can remember there was this guy that I really, really liked throughout the whole of, well, pretty much the whole of secondary school. And I heard a rumor that he was going to ask me to the prom when I was 16. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. He's definitely not going to ask me. I'm safe. And then he called my name and I literally ran in the opposite direction and pretended not to hear him. So he may have been going to ask me, or he might not have. I don't know. But
I never gave him the chance.
No. And that's kind of the theme that carried on throughout my life, really. I never really gave anyone the chance. Friends, relationships. I just kept the barriers up because I didn't want to be seen. I always felt like if someone did see me, that then they would really reject me. And it was only going to be so long till they found out that I was boring or, you know, just not what they wanted at all. And so I went off to college from school, and I did healthcare because that's what my friends were doing. And like I'd done quite well at that in GCSE, but it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to do it, because again, I didn't really have my own mind. I didn't even give myself a chance to think about what I wanted to do. It was more like, what does the world want me to do? What should I be doing? I want someone else to give me the answers. And the same theme continued, where I was avoiding speaking up. I was avoiding those presentations. I can remember walking all the way to college once because I went to college in my own town, so I didn't have to deal with public transport too.
Me too. And because everyone else was going there.
Yep. And I went off sick for this presentation, and it meant that I had to do it in front of just the teacher, and that felt just as horrendous to me as if I'd done it to the whole group. And of course, on top of that, I had the shame of not turning up to the group presentation in the first place. And I can remember all of my reports were talking about me being quiet. There was a report when I was in college that said I was quietly confident with my work. And I thought that's the first time anyone has used the word confident to describe me.
That's nice.
But it was nice. It gave me that sense like, oh, maybe you can have this different type of confidence. Maybe it's not all about being that louder, outgoing, easily chatty person that I imagined confidence to be. So when I left college, I was extremely isolated and disconnected, and I didn't have this group of friends who were basically just drinking buddies around me at the time. And I didn't go to university because that was far too scary for me. I thought, how am I supposed to be able to go grocery shopping, house share with people that I don't know, stand up and do a presentation to a group in university if I can't even do these things when I'm in my hometown? And the alternative, of course, is you go out and get a job. But I couldn't, because I was like, well, no one's going to want me. What can I do where I can hide in the background? If I get a job, people are going to find out that I'm useless and I can't speak to people.
Yeah, I used to have that fear as well.
Yeah, and I was sabotaging my job applications. I was missing off grades. So I was writing them with my non-dominant hand. Can you imagine what a cover letter written like that looks like?
Not someone that you want to hire.
Well. Yeah. So I did really, really well at not getting job interviews.
Yeah.
But it just meant that I felt like I was being a burden on my mum. And I was under pressure to go out and get a job. And, you know, I was feeling isolated, feeling disconnected, and I felt really hopeless. I felt like this was just the way that I was. I didn't fit in. I was broken. In fact, I called myself defective. And I just felt like there was nothing that I could do to change how I was or change the world around me. And I felt like I was destined to just be a disappointment and to live in this pain. So when I was 19, I actually overdosed and I ended up in hospital. And you would think that you would get some support when you reach this stage, but the response that I got when I was in A&E was, did you do this for attention? And of course, that's the very last thing that I wanted. So I went quiet and I didn't respond. And eventually I was given a counsellor in my GP surgery, and she was guiding me to talk about events that she obviously deemed worthy of suicide. And whilst these things were upsetting, they weren't the thing that was driving me to want to suicide. What was driving me to want to suicide was that pure self-hate that I had, the fact that I couldn't see any good in me. I couldn't see that I had any use, like, or that I was worth connecting with or keeping alive. And so in counselling, obviously, again, I would just shut down. I literally froze. My body would not let me speak. And that's what happened when I didn't feel safe. And my counsellor's response was, well, you obviously don't want my help or you'd be talking to me. And then that was the end of my counselling support, because, you know, I got my mum to ring up and say what had happened. And the doctor had gone, oh, well, she's the best that we've got, which is, you know,
painful.
I mean, yeah. It was kind of, you know, put back on my door like I was in the wrong.
Yeah, so very dismissing.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of spent the next number of years struggling through. My mum had connected me with an old friend, one of the ones that I did like spending time with one-to-one. And we'd gone out and met a group of people that I'd used to hang out with and rekindled those friendships. And I kind of got back into the, like, I'm going to be social and I'm going to drink and I'm going to kind of have that connection, even if it is not really that deep connection. It's a real surface level connection. It's something. And I ended up getting a job in healthcare, of course. And I quickly got a job in the NHS after that. A friend of mine worked on one of the wards and I got a job with her. And I was put forward to do a foundation degree at the local college. So I decided to do that, even though I was absolutely terrified and I was panicking about it. And I can remember on one of my night shifts, I was with a trainee counsellor at the time. We were both working together as healthcare assistants. And I can remember just breaking down and talking about how awful my school experiences were and how I couldn't do presentations. And I think that was the first time that I was really listened to, the first time I was really heard. Because, I mean, even after I had overdosed, the response that I got was like, oh, it's time to pull yourself together. And I guess what I really needed was just for someone to listen to me, to validate those feelings that I was having. So I went along and I did the interview and I got on the course, and it turns out that I can do presentations.
And do them very well.
Thank you. And it's really using those more introverted strengths that I have that mean that I can prepare really well. I'll spend a lot of time preparing for a presentation and then I can show up and deliver it. And at that time, it was probably more stumbly and red-faced. And one thing that I did realize was that even though I thought I was showing up with a red face, I actually wasn't, because I did a presentation when I did an internship with Cancer Research UK. And I did a presentation to maybe 400 people at a school local to us. And in my presentation, I'd been talking about how this is really important. And that's how I can stand up here with, you know, a red face and shaking. And afterwards, a couple of the girls went, I don't know why you said that, because you didn't have a red face. And I thought, oh, maybe the way that I see myself isn't actually how I come across. And I got really good feedback about that presentation. And it just started me questioning about the way that I see myself. Is that really how other people are seeing me? And the truth is, it wasn't. I was so focused on everything that I saw as a flaw. And I didn't give myself a chance to recognize the good that was in me and what I was doing well. I was just zooming in on the things that I felt hadn't gone as well, which other people weren't even picking up on.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to do that, don't we? Like our filters can be set to just looking at everything that we consider bad or that we don't like about ourselves, and miss so much of the good things and the strengths that we have and the qualities that we might have.
Yeah.
When I was about 21, I actually went back to the doctors again because I felt like I needed more support. But I also felt like I'd already had that support and I still felt the same on many levels. And that really kind of reinforced this idea of like, I must be broken. I can't be fixed. That there's something wrong with me, because I already had that support and a lot of things still hadn't changed, which I think is a really common experience that many of us experience. Like we feel like we have one set of counseling sessions, or we have that like one little block of support, and we feel like, or we expect that things are going to magically change for us, that we're going to wake up the next day and everything's going to be fine. And what I've learned over the last like 20 years or so is that actually things take time, and that's okay. And that this is a process, and it's digging into some of this stuff, which obviously we're going to be exploring more throughout this podcast.
And I think the big thing for me was when I started talking about my story, I heard a lot of people say, me too. And I realized that I wasn't alone and that other people felt anxious, even though I couldn't see that in them, even though I might look at people and see them as confident. They had real struggles as well. And I saw this especially when I was doing my foundation degree, because there were people in the class that I would have considered to be a lot more confident than me, who were struggling as much as, and sometimes even more than I was, with presentations or speaking up in class. And this was the first time that I was really talking about how nervous I was about doing these presentations, and realizing that other people felt this way too. And interestingly, I considered myself to be the quiet one in the class, and someone else from that class contacted me last year, and they started their message with, "You'll probably remember me as the quiet one in the class." Like, not really how I saw her. She certainly came across as more quietly confident.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How, I mean, like we all have our own perceptions of how we think other people see us, and then other people might see us in different ways, but they think that we might be seeing them in certain lights when we might be thinking the complete opposite. It's when you start to look at things from that perspective, like it just seems mad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the second pivotal kind of moment for me in my life was when I went to university. So I studied fashion design, and this was really the space where I first learned the lesson that it's okay to make mistakes, and that embracing the parts of you that are different from other people are the things that actually are the most interesting aspects of who you are. And we were really taught to just explore and to play and bring out those qualities within you that perhaps you don't actually like, because that there was this whole idea around, that ugly is actually beautiful. So perhaps some of those things that you currently feel like are unacceptable to you, like let's explore those and let's express those and let's see what we can transform them into. So by the time I left university, at this point I was 24, I remember leaving and feeling like a different person than the person that showed up on that first day. Yeah, by the time I left, I felt a lot more confident than I had. I think it was the first time that I had really, accessed a part of confidence within me. And that was quite amazing for me. I almost didn't know what that feeling was. And then that final big shift that I've experienced so far in my life came, after I met Hayley and we started working together on Quiet Connections. And then I trained to be an NLP practitioner. And it was on my NLP training that I think that just turned my world upside down, made me question so many different things. And all of a sudden I realized that I had been holding on to so many beliefs about myself that were just not helpful and were just not serving me. And obviously it gave me the tools as well to start kind of working with those and start shifting those. So there are still times where I still feel quite socially anxious. And I think the biggest difference now is that I don't feel so ashamed of it. That sense of shame that I used to experience, when I couldn't speak to someone or when I started freezing up or when I would go silent, it still does happen at times, and that's okay. I think it's looking at it from a different perspective. And one of the biggest things that I learned throughout that training was how much I identified as feelings or as behaviors that I had. So I very much kind of stood in the place of like, I'm an anxious person, I'm a shy person, I'm incapable. It was very much I am those things. And over time, like they became almost fused with what my sense of identity of who I was. And the NLP training and doing some work around language and stuff really helped to start separating that, and for me to realize that actually I'm not anxiety, because anxiety is a feeling.
You're so right though. It's that identifying that our feelings are fluid and they come and go. They're like clouds passing through the sky. They're not who you are. And what we tend to do is pick them up and put them in a bucket and carry it with us wherever we go, like, this is a part of me. And it's really not. We can put that bucket down. It's not always with us. We just have to notice the times when we are putting it down.
Completely agree. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was walking around carrying these buckets of, this is who I am. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm shy, I can't speak to people, I am incapable of doing certain things or a lot of things. And looking at those things as parts of my identity was the thing really that I think led me to feeling like I was broken, because those things were unacceptable to me, and from the way that I believed about them, having those feelings of anxiety, feeling shut down, freezing, like those things felt unacceptable, they felt shameful. And because I saw those as parts of my identity and who I actually was, that meant that I was unacceptable, that it wasn't okay to be who I was. And I think learning that actually those are emotions, they're feelings, they're behaviors, they're not who I truly am, was really a first amazing step for me to start separating the pieces and start asking myself, well, who actually am I? And start coming back to who I was.
Yeah, and this is a really, really powerful first step. And we're actually going to be digging into this much more deeply in the next episode.
How would you describe where you are now, Hayley?
So, well, I am a million miles away from where I was. And I definitely feel like I embody that quietly confident now. I've kind of made that my own. And I'm okay with that. I can feel confident in my own self. I'm very appreciative of my quiet strengths. Whereas before I just didn't even recognize them. I just thought, oh, these are things that everyone can do. And the important things are the more extroverted qualities that I don't really use.
I mean, that's such a beautiful place to be, isn't it? When you start to see that those qualities within you and actually how much strength there are in this. Like, I love that term, quietly confident, because I think that's something that so many of us, especially those of us who are naturally more quieter, it gives us something to reframe our perception of what confidence can look like, and to actually be like, oh, actually, yeah, I'm quietly confident. I don't have to be loud to be perceived as confident. It's about me being grounded in who I am. Like, to me, that's what quiet confidence feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. That, to me, confidence is all about being accepting of who you are and knowing that you have some tools that you can use to show up and be seen. And so I've been picking up these tools for the last, I don't know, over a decade now. I feel like I can trust myself to show up and to be able to cope with difficult situations now, because I've got these tools, and because I know these techniques that are going to help manage those anxious feelings. And I'm much more willing to make mistakes. I'm much more willing to, let go of perfection. Now, I know that doesn't exist. I know I'm striving for something that just isn't possible. And therefore, it's okay for me to just do my best. And that's good enough. And I'm also not afraid of the criticism or rejection like I was before, because I feel like I do belong. I feel like, I've grown up in a world that has sent me messages that I don't belong, but that's not the truth. And I've certainly found belonging within myself. I found belonging with certain people. And the more that I show up as the person that I am, then the more I feel that sense of belonging. It's about owning it for me.
I mean, that's so true, isn't it? Like, we can't belong if we're not showing up as who we truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of what Brené Brown says, who is a wonderful researcher into connection and shame, or everything that gets in the way of connection. And she talks about how our level of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. And really, it starts from within, because quite often I know we can be looking externally and wanting things to change around us, but that's really a cue that there's inner work to be done.
Absolutely. And I think for me, learning the difference between fitting in and belonging was quite important, because fitting in was all about that externalization. It's about the validation, gaining approval from other people. It's very much about, what can I do for other people to like me, or to approve of me, or to be happy with me. So there was nothing in that around me, like asking myself, like, what do I need to be happy? Or what is it that I want to share? What is it that I want to express? And then finding, or just like stepping into that, and then allowing the people who relate to that to come towards you. You naturally find your people when you start showing up as who you truly are. And that is what belonging is. It's natural. It's not about forcing or shifting or changing yourself in order to be approved or be validated by other people.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges is that we don't necessarily realize that we're showing up with all this armor on and we don't realize we're trying to fit in. So this will be some topics that we'll explore throughout this series as well. So I guess it would be really useful to just pick out some of the key themes from your story and mine. So in each of our stories, you'll notice that there's a really strong element of connecting, where we realize that we weren't alone, weird, broken, defective, because we've shared our stories with someone who said, me too. Or because we've heard somebody else's story and it struck a chord with us and made us realize that other people feel the same way and other people experience similar challenges too. So a really vital piece of the puzzle is to begin connecting with other people. And this connecting with other people works so well for us, because the thing that drives our sense of feeling like we're not good enough and wanting to hide ourselves away or hide parts of ourselves away is that sense of shame that we carry with us, which is defined by Brené Brown as that intensely painful feeling of believing that we are flawed and unworthy of love and belonging. But this sense of shame that bubbles under the surface in the darkness, it doesn't just go away. In fact, when it's kept hidden in the darkness, it simply grows and grows. We have to actively let it out into the daylight, sharing with people who can respond with empathy. And Stacey and I still do this. We still have these moments where we feel this sense of shame and we pick up the phone and go, I need to talk to you.
Yeah, it still comes up. I think it's recognizing that it's normal.
Yeah.
Shame is an inherent human emotion. It's normal for us to feel that sense of shame. It's not pleasant, it's not comfortable, but it is a normal emotion. And there are definitely ways that we can start learning how to feel more comfortable with that shame and start working through it. But connecting with someone is definitely a first great step to start working with it, as opposed to trying to run away from it.
Yeah. So at Quiet Connections, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. We created an app, the Quiet Connections app, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also have a Facebook group where you can connect and support each other. But what we also do is just share stories and quotes from people who have similar experiences on our Facebook and Instagram pages, and also on our blog. And this means that you can clearly see that you're not alone in your fears and challenges, because there's so many people going through something similar right now.
One of the other key components from moving from socially anxious to quietly confident is about stretching your comfort zone. It's recognizing that, like, the place where we probably are right now, where you're feeling like you are right now, this is going to be your comfort zone. The things that keep us small, that keep us hidden, that keep us feeling protected and safe, all of those things currently exist within our comfort zone. Quite often, what we hear from other people is, in order to grow, that you need to jump out of your comfort zone. You need to step right out of it, do something big, be really brave. And ultimately, for a lot of us, what we then experience is panic. So when we look at that comfort zone stretch, or just the comfort zone model, we have the comfort zone in the middle, then there's a learning zone, and then there's a panic zone. So much of the advice and the tips that we receive from, throughout society, is to go from comfort zone into panic zone. What we've learned over the last years of working on ourselves and with working with clients is that the learning zone is really where we want to be. So we want to take those gradual steps, stretch in the comfort zone, and in order to stay out of that panic zone and for that comfort zone to actually grow. And myself and Hayley, we've experienced this many times, practicing how to speak up and, to deliver things like this podcast and to do webinars and things, started with us in small groups, just practicing how to do presentations, practicing how to take those small little steps, and having that permission and that space to actually make mistakes and to get it wrong and to
get feedback.
To get feedback. So the key word of this really is that it's all about practice. I think so many of us, we don't give ourselves that permission, probably because we never received that permission in the first place, to just have a go and to make mistakes, to just explore what something might be like without too much expectation as to what the outcome will be. And to take small steps, like the smallest steps that you can possibly think of, are enough to start stretching that comfort zone. You don't have to take big leaps and jump from like one cliff to another. It's about taking just those really small steps. We have a comfort zone stretch plan on our website, which is a free resource that you can download. If you go to quietconnections.co.uk/free gifts, you'll be able to find the comfort zone stretch plan there. So that might be something that you'd like to just get started with and just explore, like, what some of those stretches are that you might be able to make.
And then we've mentioned about having tools and techniques under your belt so that you can more confidently, more trusting in yourself, show up and just have a go at things, knowing that you can manage those anxious feelings and difficult situations that you may find yourself in. This is the third step, and this is the model that we use within Quiet Connections. It's connect, stretch, and grow. So under the grow banner, it is all of this learning that we do that involves learning maybe what is happening within our bodies when we are feeling anxious. It's learning about tools and techniques that we can use to show up, manage those anxious feelings, to bring about feelings of confidence, to anchor those feelings of confidence from those moments when we do feel it. And it's also about working with your body because we find that when we are socially anxious, we tend to have lots and lots of feelings that are built up within us. And we have to find a way to release these, to start moving our bodies, because most of us tend to keep ourselves very small and hidden in the way that we hold ourselves, in the way that we move. And it's important to start actually taking up space and changing the way that we are using our bodies and interacting with the world around us. It doesn't just happen in our heads. And this goes back to what you were saying, Stacey, about feeling like I should have all of this fixed because I've had counselling. It's not just about having counselling. It's not just about talking about what's going on for you. It's not just about having CBT. And on that note, I think it's 18 sessions of CBT is recommended, whereas usually we only get about 6 sessions of CBT. So there's no wonder that it doesn't have the impact that we expect it or want it to have. But there's that missing piece. There's all these different ways that we can work with our bodies as well as our minds. And this is just as important. Although for me, I had to really learn the kind of science behind it. For, take breathing, for example. I would think, oh, I can breathe. I'm breathing all the time. If breathing isn't going to work for me, I'm far too bad for breathing to work. But when I learned about how it actually influences the body, how it changes what your nervous system is doing, it makes sense. And it gave me the motivation to actually try it and give it a go. And breathing is one of the most powerful things that you can do for your body to change how you feel. And it really gives you that tool to take control of your emotions.
Yeah, it's about integrating the mind and the body together, isn't it? To become one whole system as opposed to those two separate pieces, which I think is, when a lot of us are trying to work on ourselves, trying to support ourselves and help ourselves to grow and to make those changes, that we tend to isolate those two things. We're either working on our minds or we're working on our bodies, when the two simultaneously need to be worked together.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. So we'll leave it there. And thank you so much for joining us for this first episode of Quiet Connections podcast. And in episode 2, we'll be exploring the very first puzzle piece that often gets missed. This is the key to unlocking your ability to create the change that you want to see in your life. And it involves shifting your perspective away from seeing anxiety as part of who you are, just like we were talking about earlier. This missing puzzle piece creates the belief that you can change. And this is what propels you forwards. So we really look forward to you joining us for episode 2. And in the meantime, please stay connected.
Thanks for listening. You can find the show notes from this episode at quietconnections.co.uk. Before you go, please subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date with all future episodes.
With gratitude for the support of the National Lottery Community Fund.